All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Pepperman from Rockaway Borough PD in New Jersey, 29 years total in law enforcement. He serves on the executive board for the Morris County Police Chiefs Association. He is the legislative chairman for the New Jersey State Association of Chief of Police, and he is a board member for Rockaway Municipal Alliance Committee and Prevention is Key, which focuses on drug and alcohol and mental health wellness resources. So, welcome to the show, Chief Pepperman. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Paige. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Of course, I was really trying hard through that intro to make sure that I pronounced everything correctly and I got it all down. It's really impressive. You have a lot that you're doing, and I know wellness is something that's a huge priority and focus for you as a leader. And so, I was hoping you could first maybe just give us a little bit of background. I know when you and I talked offline, you shared a little bit with me about your upbringing and how you came from a really healthy and wellness focused family.
I did, yes. So growing up is a very interesting story. My grandmother in the 60s opened up a daycare center in New Jersey. She had two locations, and right around the 1970s, it was kind of unheard of. She was actually preaching health and wellness to her children. It was, I believe, K through third grade. And, one of a part of her business models was that she didn't want anything, no artificial flavoring, no dyes in food. It had to be at that time. It was like natural ingredients. Organic really wasn't really big at the time, but she was introducing organic foods to the nursery kids. And I nicknamed her, my cousin and I growing up, she watched this a lot. We nicknamed her the food police. Remember her actually walking around the lunch tables, going around looking at the kids' lunch and food and being, oh, well, this is white flour. You need to tell your parents, don't bring that into the school. But she was super strict, way ahead of her time. In addition to that, she also talked about the hormones in milk, the hormones in meats. She was a pioneer, again, like I said, like in the 70s, and she brought this all the way up until the 90s. And it really instilled, I think, value in, you really are what you eat. One of her famous quotes was always that children are born with three strikes against them: the air they breathe, the food they eat, and the water they drink. And I still think that holds true to this day, coming into our profession. And then my family also had several health food stores in New Jersey.
I love that. I do want to talk a little bit about, kind of your perspective as a kid, because you were like, she's the food police. Do you think that, later in life, it really gave you kind of that foundation that maybe when you're younger, you're like, man, like this lady is so strict and you didn't really understand it, but now you're thankful for it today?
Yes, yeah, because she would yell at us if we had like ice cream and any she called them like commercialized products.
Yeah.
She would, take a label and like, do you see what this is? This is a preservative. It's terrible for you. But it educated us. And I think, a lot of my friends, I tend to sometimes I pick in their diet and, of course, I live at 80-20. You have to live a little, but for 80% of the time I try to eat healthy. And I think that 20% when I do cheat, all my friends are like, did you read that label? That's not good for you. It's going to give you high cholesterol.
Yeah. That's so funny. And what a blessing to have someone in your life that was able to educate you at such a young age. I feel like, a lot of us who are listening didn't have that, and we grew up on Pop Tarts and cereal and all these things that we didn't know at the time were bad for us. And now through, more education, we're starting to see those things. But for you to grow up in that environment, I think that is such a huge advantage that you had in life to be able to be more selective in what you put in your body. And, you said the three check marks, the air you breathe, which we can't control, right? Like there might be some things that you can do to, try to purify the air within, your space. But when we're out walking around, we can't really control that. The water you drink, we have a little bit of control and purification, right? That we can focus on. But the food you eat is really like we have the ability to choose what food we put in our body. And I do think that education and awareness is the first step to making healthier choices.
It is. I agree. And I think, listen, food is a comfort. Whether you're stressed out in life or people like to eat, they do. They like to indulge. But I think that I think a lot of people tend to, they go to a doctor rather than sit down and say, hey, what are you eating? It's much easier just to take a pill, or doctors just handing out medicine. Again, not all doctors do that. I do believe in doctors, and I do believe in medicine as a last resort. But I just do think that this country is over medicated.
Yeah.
It shows, in the state of New Jersey, every corner we have Walgreens and CVS pharmacies. So obviously they're there for a reason. People are taking lots of drugs.
Yeah.
And I think in addition, with the hustle and bustle, people on the go, every corner there's convenience stores. There are some healthy options in convenience stores, but I think the majority of people are going there for junk food, energy drinks, nicotine products. They're not getting a grilled chicken salad over arugula.
Yeah. I like your 80/20 rule. I think that it makes it feel less scary for people because I do think that when we talk about food, it's a really personal conversation. And I've definitely been in conference settings where there are people who are doing presentations on nutrition. And if they come in too hot and they're like, don't do this, like you can never do that, you feel the energy in the room where everyone gets defensive. You kind of like feel everyone being like, who are you to tell me what to eat? And so I think if you can say, hey, like, we recognize that you're human and, that maybe every once in a while, you want to indulge yourself, you want to celebrate, you want to eat the sweets or whatever it is, but can we have a healthier balance that weighs that it tips the scale more in the direction of healthy the majority of the time. And I think if we can have those conversations of trying to meet people where they are, then it becomes more well received instead
Right.
of, because as soon as you have, that wall, you've lost them.
Yeah.
So like, how can we ease into that conversation and start just making small, healthier habits over time and then try to tip the scales in the direction of healthy the majority of the time? There's a guy, and I'll have to tell you offline because I'm not going to remember his name. He's like an Instagram guy. And he has this funny thing. He just says like, stop eating like an asshole is basically his thing. Right. And so he'll like do like a clip and be like, what to eat healthy at this place. And then he'll be like, just kidding, go to the grocery store or whatever. But his whole thing is he shows you ways that you can eat on the go in a
Right.
healthy way that is actually sometimes less time consuming than the fast grab and go. And so I'll have to show you his like social media profile because I think that the way he does it, he's definitely more strict on things, but it just shows you like, hey, it's maybe sometimes longer to wait in that fast food line than it is to like hop into your grocery store and grab like some, hard boiled eggs or whatever it is. So I'll digress.
No, listen, absolutely agree. I mean,
Yeah.
years ago when I, sitting in the car working a lot of road jobs, I used to bring like cans of tuna. People are like, why do you have cans of tuna? I'm like, well, if I can't leave, I'm hungry. It's good protein and it's clean. Obviously, and
100%.
you bring like the fruit, some nuts, and maybe now and then you have like a granola bar or something. But like I said, there is healthy options. And I think a lot of people use that excuse. Well, I work shift work. I'm always in a rush. Well, listen, you could always call the pizzeria ahead. You could get a salad. There's always healthy options available, especially nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
I think 29 years ago when I first started, there wasn't many healthy options out there.
Do you think that you got maybe teased a little or razzed a little by, bringing some of those healthier options from your peers? Or do you think that by doing that, you were setting an example for other people to follow?
Listen, I still get teased because every morning I do a healthy shake, and some of my friends I always take the picture, and they're like, oh, that's you eat too clean or you're too skinny or this. So there's always biases and everything, but people always tend to pick on the bias where everyone's like, oh, well, mind your own business. Well, it works both ways. There's always eating healthy. You can be discriminated against too because people think like, oh, just have this for once. Stop being so picky.
Mm.
But like I said, I start my morning and I try to tell everybody. I send pictures because everyone's like, I like to help people with their diet and give them information. I'm no nutritionist, but again, common sense, reading labels, being around the business. I start my day in the morning with the plant-based protein shake, and I put a scoop of green vibrance, a little collagen powder. I use water, and I put a little fruit in it. Then I have like a small cup of organic oatmeal with a little granola, just a little. Lunch I try to eat healthy. Then nighttime, my day goes downhill. I eat whatever I want, and I try to keep it clean.
That's the 20%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And alcohol in moderation. I tell everybody, obviously, if you're going to drink, try to keep it clear, right? Vodkas,
Yeah.
tequilas. Don't do the bourbons. Glass of wine is good now and then. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you said that. I had an agency one time. They're like, can you do like a healthier alcohol swap guide? They're like,
yeah,
and I was like, there's really a few things. Either don't do it at all,
yeah,
or like you said, tequila, vodka is always going to be better, less sugar.
right.
And then no mixed drinks that have any sort of sugar. Do like water or soda water or something like that. But yeah, thank you for sharing, because I'm like right on board with you. And it's really refreshing to hear someone say, hey, like
Mhm.
it's doable.
It is. Yeah.
I know that shift work is hard, but it's something that you can do. And it's a habit and a consistency that you can create over time. And so I don't know if you agree with this, but what I always try to tell people is you don't have to start at 100. You can just start with one thing. Like, what if we just did one healthier swap
No.
a week? And then we can build on that. So start somewhere and then we can build. I think what happens is a lot of people get overwhelmed of like, oh, well, now I got to do like chief, right? Like I got to have my protein shake. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do all these things. And that feels really overwhelming. But what if we just switched one thing?
Correct. Yeah.
And then we can switch two things once that becomes consistent. And so we can build these healthier habits long term over time. Do you think that your background, it gave you more of a passion or a focus for wellness now that you're in an executive position?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Again, being in a leadership position, we like to, my job is to take care of the my department, to be in the best, obviously, physical mental shape possible. So I think, if I have knowledge, I want to give them and let them know, obviously, about diet and nutrition. And a lot of them do come to me with questions, and they're like, chief, you know about, supplementation, nutrition, what do you think? I always tell them, look, I go, honestly, I think your best thing is you go to a doctor, you get your blood work done. People pop a lot of pills, whether it's medicine or supplements or vitamins. You might not need to take that. You should really get a detailed breakdown, A to Z. Some people might be lacking vitamin D. Then you got to take vitamin D. Some people, let's say you have too much magnesium. Why are you taking a magnesium supplement? You don't need it. I think
Yeah.
that's the best thing. That's preventative health, I think. And I think even like healthcare is through the roof in New Jersey. So I think preventative health treatment brings everything down. The cost of healthcare, the cost of you going to a doctor. It's like, people bring their cars to get oil change, right? Maintenance. I feel like a lot of people, sometimes they neglect the body. They get on a hamster wheel, and it's just like, work, family life. And they forget about taking care of themselves. And if
Yeah.
you're not taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of your family. God forbid something happens to you.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with you. I think preventative proactive is always king. But I
mhm.
think for some reason, and I don't know if you have an opinion on this, because I've been, having a lot of conversations about this and trying to really identify why people are not doing these things. Why aren't you going for a yearly checkup? And I hear the same things you do, like time or, busy, or I think a lot of it might be fear of the unknown. Ignorance is bliss a little bit. Like you don't want to know, if there's maybe something going on. And so it's an interesting conversation. And I tell people all the time, it is easier to stay fit than to get fit. So
Mhm.
if you have that proactive preventative approach, then you can stay on top of it versus not taking care of yourself. And now you get, 10, 15 years in and you realize that there's a problem, and now the work is a lot harder sometimes. Like, let's say a simple example, maybe you let your nutrition go and now you've gained a bunch of weight and it's harder to get back to where you were before. Or, something worse, like there's maybe a serious health issue that maybe could have been treatable before that isn't now. And so I think the cost is so much bigger when you are reactive, but at the same time, it's hard to get people to be proactive. So how do we get people to do it? How do we get people to be more preventative?
So that's a great comment and a great question. So one thing I do in my department is if guys want to go or while they're working, I'll let them go for their yearly physical. This way I don't have to take any time off. There's a plethora of programs now in New Jersey where you do they do like stress tests, cardio, echoes. They do a panel on your blood work. And I think insurance covers it once a year.
Yep.
I think that's pertinent. So just gotta
Yeah,
get a sip of water. Sorry.
you're good. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think that anytime we can eliminate hurdles, and we know that one of the hurdles is time. And so if we can eliminate that hurdle of time, then maybe it makes it more likely that someone will do it. Have you seen a bigger increase in people taking advantage of that time and going and doing it?
I do. I think over the last years, especially on this whole physical and mental health thing has been pushed statewide.
Yeah.
Because I think obviously in our profession, you have sleep deprivation, or stress, suicide rate, divorce, the shift work, the stress of the job. So I think we're becoming more in tune with helping law enforcement across the state in general. So I think there's more awareness now where there wasn't in the past. Everybody's on board, which is good. I know the Attorney General of New Jersey just came out with a grant where departments can actually apply for funds for wellness for officers.
Great.
The state PBA did some legislation work where if it's any critical incident on duty, you get 12 hours off to seek your own therapist. We have something in New Jersey also called Cop to Cop 24/7, 365 hotline. You could talk to clinicians and other police officers. I know in Morris County, the county where I'm chief, there's other municipalities where we have a critical incident debriefing team. I've used it before for my officers. Tremendous. It's great. We have a Father Ray runs that program. Excellent. Comes in, sits down, will talk to you. Everything's confidential. I think so. I think there's that stigma that's gone away where police are warriors. We handle all types of incidents, and sometimes we're just want to be treated like everybody else. It's okay to cry if you have a stressful incident. We're not superheroes. We're human beings.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely want to kind of dive into, some of the things that you guys are saying. I know that you're really involved with the legislation and, your county police chiefs and other organizations. Um, my, I was thinking about this. So I get as much out of these podcasts as everybody else. It's such a huge opportunity for me to think in different ways and to have different perspectives and conversations with individuals like yourself. And I had someone the other day, they were like, what do you hope for? Like what do you hope happens in the future? And these are questions I ask you guys all the time. Like, what do you guys, and and I don't know if you share this same, but I really hope that we can change how law enforcement sees wellness, and that it's not necessarily because you're broken. It's because we want to create systems and resources so that you can thrive and not just survive this career, so that you can have the best opportunity at life and you can feel your best, you can perform your best, that it's really more of this tactical athletic approach of like, hey, like no one we've ever met signs up and says, I want to grind for 30 years. And when I get to the end of it, I want to feel like absolute garbage, physically, mentally. Like I want to be completely in shambles and then not be able to enjoy the fruits of my labor. No one will say that. But there is still a stigma when it comes to wellness. And so my hope is through these conversations and through the efforts that I know a lot of states across the country are making, that it's viewed more as tactical, athletic performance training and elevating this idea of survival and raising the bar to thriving within the career and having quality of life.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point because listen, even after retirement, I think the average statistic I think is usually like 7 to 10 years.
Yep.
Police officers, law enforcement pass away. So what are we doing wrong? You're right. Like after retirement, are they still following? Is there still support for them once they leave the position? But like I know, even in our department, our union, they pay for gym memberships for our officers. So we talked about actually even letting the officers go while they're working, as long as we have enough staff where they can go an hour and and work out. And it's like any profession. They work 12-hour shifts. They're entitled to a break like any other profession.
Yep.
So, but I think there's like you mentioned. I think it's becoming more on the forefront now, where from the state level, from the county level to the local level, where we're trying to actually get more involvement of law enforcement. And if you don't have a healthy mind, you don't have a healthy body. You don't have a healthy body, you don't have a healthy mind. They work hand in hand.
Yeah.
And just because, let's be honest, you could have a in shape person, but internally, you don't know they could have. I've seen it happen. I've seen in shape guys who work out every day, but they're intaking the wrong foods. Maybe even heavier people could be healthier inside. They're eating the right foods.
Yeah.
And genetics do play obviously a part. And I tell people, a lot of officers come like, oh, well, it's genetics. I go, it's partial genetics. I'm not a scientist. I don't know the exact breakdown, but if you have genetics, then you need to get healthier. And me personally, I do. I think I have good genetics because I do the 80-20, and I stay in shape. I'm thin. I'm 52. I'm on no medications. So I think genetics does play a part, but it's what you're putting into your body and your mouth. I've seen many officers who blood levels were through the roof. They go back to their doctors. The doctors go, oh yeah, I guess the medicine's working. They go, no, I threw the medicine down the toilet. I changed what I ate. And they're like, oh
Yeah.
really? It's amazing. It really is. And anyone who you know doesn't believe what I'm saying, or oh that's BS, try it for yourself. Just try it.
Yeah.
Change your diet. And listen, it's tough. Some people can't do it. It's difficult. But I just feel like getting the word out, and I feel like I love this profession. I want people to enjoy the afterlife, because we work very hard for what I do 25, 30 years. You enjoy to have that afterlife, to collect your pension with your family, your loved ones, and enjoy life.
Yeah. And I like that message of like, we don't want you to become another statistic.
Correct.
We don't want that to happen. We want to change the
Hmm.
trajectory of those, statistics for the better. And the other thing too, and I love that you connected the mind and the body and the body and the mind, because they are so closely intertwined. And I think that when we can talk strategy, right? Because I have a lot of people who come up to me and they're like, Paige, like I have let myself go. I haven't done anything for however long. Like, what do I do? And it kind of goes back to what we were saying before of like small actionable steps that we can build on over time. I think that physical is a really good strategy to start because it's tangible, right? It's like, how can we just start with something that like makes sense, And if you feel bad physically and mentally, how can we change one of them to impact the other one, right? So, go for a walk once a day. Just start there. Get outside, get away from your desk, whatever it is that you need to do, go for a walk one time a day. Maybe you walk around your block in the morning before you head out for work. Maybe after work, you walk around before you go in to see your family, whatever it is. Make that consistent. Then start to feel how you feel better mentally. And then it compounds, right? Then we can add to that. I think that people don't understand the significance of physical fitness and how it impacts your mental health and stress reduction. When you are doing these physical exercises, you are forced to breathe, right? You're regulating your breath more, which is nervous system regulation, which is also going to help with stress reduction and mitigation. And stress causes so many issues. And you guys have a really, really challenging career. And so everything that you're saying, spot on, like physical, mental, they're related. And then how can we make healthier nutritional choices as well? And I know you mentioned, well, you mentioned a few things, but what I thought about was heart health. We have a lot of people that we work with that are either have had issues with their heart or they're pre-diabetic or diabetic. And so all of these things are intertwined. And I think if we can just start with one, make it consistent, and then compound over time.
Correct. Yeah. It's funny. I remember when I first started, like me and my partner on night shift, sometimes she also was into working out. And we'd be like, all right, let's do some push-ups. I mean, you're working, not wrong, right? Drop down and do some push-ups, especially with the vest on and the gun belt. It's weighted push-ups. Then we get a desk and chair. We'll do some tricep dips. Then
Mm.
we got uh, intuitive. We got 5 gallon water jugs, to fight from the water, curl and trying to lift those up, doing
Yeah.
rows. You adapt, right? If you want to work out, you can do anything. Like
I
you
love
said, go
that.
for a walk, even on night shift. You want to tell my guy, get out of the police car, walk around, you know,
Yeah.
do a
Yeah.
lap.
I love
There's
that.
always, there's always something you could get up and do. That's what
Yeah.
I tell people.
It's just intentionality.
It is, yeah.
Right. The other thing that's helped me a lot, because I do think that sometimes we don't think about it, right?
Hmm.
Like you are in your habits, right? And so, like, you are used to what you're used to,
Hmm.
and you have to like break that up a little bit, right? You have to change your habits in order to choose a different path, and that requires awareness around it. And there's been plenty of times where, I go throughout my day and I'm like, oh man, I should have done this. Maybe I should have gone to the gym today. I could have done it earlier. Or like, oh, like I should have read my book or whatever. There's so many things I think after the fact we realize that maybe we didn't put our time to use in the most effective way. So what's helped me is I sit down with myself periodically and I ask myself these questions. Where can I do better? What's working? What isn't working? Have kind of that self assessment period. And then I schedule stuff for myself on my calendar. Because for me, if it's not on my calendar, it does not happen. And my calendar is crazy. So I have to carve out the time and I have to say, these are non negotiables. I schedule it in my calendar. And then I tell myself, so for this podcast, for example, there is not a world where I just wouldn't show up. I wouldn't just last minute cancel on you because I value your time. I respect your time. I have to have the same value and respect for myself. And so if I'm going to schedule something for myself, it's there. I'm not canceling last minute. I'm going to show up for myself just like I would other people. And that has helped me a lot to put it in my calendar. So maybe that helps someone else who's listening, to just start with like one thing a week where you're like, okay, Monday mornings at 8 a.m., I'm going to go for my walk. And that's what I'm going to do every Monday.
Yeah.
It's on the
I,
calendar.
yeah, I think, one of my stress releases is definitely going to the gym and working out. And the other one is playing golf. So I
Mm.
think you really have to find out what you like and enjoy. Some of my friends they're pickleball addicts. They love pickleball and it's healthy.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with doing healthy hobbies. That's what I tell people. Now, if you're doing nicotine, you're excessively drinking, some people that's their hobby, but it's not a healthy hobby.
Yeah.
So I think you really have to find a hobby. I always tell people, find something that makes you happy. Find a hobby
Mhm.
because everybody needs an outlet in life. Life is full
Yeah.
of stresses. We know that, whether it's job, family, relationships. So you have to look outside the box, and sometimes you need me time.
Yeah. I
Focus on
appreciate
yourself.
you. I appreciate you differentiating healthy versus unhealthy
Hmm.
mechanisms,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
I do think that's a really important thing to recognize because you're right. Some people might be like, yeah, well, my thing I like to do is, you know, go to the bar every single night. And I
Hmm.
think you have to ask yourself those questions. Am I doing this in a healthy, productive way or not? And I've had this conversation a few times where someone asked me, how do I identify? And this was really from an executive level. They were like, I work all the time. I
Hmm.
Chiefs are 24/7, right? You're always on call, you're always working. And the question that was brought to me was, how do I know if like it's almost like an addiction, where like I'm just like a workaholic, and it's unhealthy or it's healthy. And I think we have to ask ourselves, like, are we doing it because we love it? Because it's good for us? Do we have a balance with it? Or are we doing these things to escape reality, to avoid reality, to numb, whatever it is that we're not doing? And so, again, I think we have to take our own like self assessment into our own hands. Like we have to be responsible for those things, and we have to ask ourselves those questions and be really honest. And sometimes that sucks. Like there's been times where I've looked at myself and I'm like, if I'm going to be brutally honest, I'm doing this because I don't want to deal with that. And so
Correct.
it's like, okay, well, is that healthy or not? And most of the times it's not healthy. So what are the things I can do to counteract to get to the other side where I'm healthier and happier?
Hmm. No, that's good points. I think in law enforcement, you see the same thing again. Like I mentioned before, that hamster wheel. Well, people are like, "Oh, I'll start working out tomorrow." And I
Mhm.
share that I'm trying to bring to the gym. I'm like, "Come on, come to the gym." Yeah, I'm going to start next month. then
Yep.
then it's the fine month, and they're never there. And
Yep.
I'm like, come on, we have free gym memberships, free.
Yeah, let's do it. I did want to ask you, you know, from my knowledge, and you can tell me if you guys are different, but there are a lot of standards for fitness and wellness in the academy. And then once you graduate from the academy, there really isn't a standard across the board that is required for health and wellness. What is your opinion on that? Do you think that there should be higher physical and mental health standards just across the board?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I know the state police are the only ones in New Jersey that actually have some type of standard. They have to do a yearly physical. Municipal police, there is no standard. Some departments do set standards. It's voluntarily, but there's nothing by law. It comes a slippery slope with some unions that they don't want the officers getting hurt, or if a person isn't in shape, they don't pass the standard. Then what? Like, is their job in jeopardy? But listen, you took this job. Obviously, you're out there, and you have to be in shape. You have to, because people's lives could depend on it. Whether you're in a foot chase, you're wrestling with somebody. So me personally, I think there should be standards.
Yeah.
Uh, Again, but will it ever happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
I've heard a few agencies that are starting to do that. And they've actually seen their retention and their recruitment increase.
mhm,
So they've had positive, and I think they only had, there was one agency that I talked to, they said that they implemented a standard that was every year that was mandatory. And
mhm.
I think there was only one that was like on the cusp of like maybe not passing, and they were working with them to like get them up to speed. But I appreciate that you put it in the context of performance on the job, and that the stakes are really high. It could be life or death. And what is the opposite if someone can't do what they need to do in the
Mhm.
field? What can happen, and what can the impact of that be? So um,
Yep.
I do think that there will be.
Yeah.
I do think I think it's going to take time. I always say that it's like the Titanic, like
Yeah.
it's very slow to turn. It's not a jet ski that we can flip around. But I do think that across the board, we're going to start to see more standards and mandatory wellness
They did
standards.
bring in the self-defensive standards where you have to train as far as self-defense. So we do have a lot of officers that do the jiu-jitsu,
Yep.
non-compliant takedowns, holes. So it's, they did bring that into it.
Yeah.
But as far as like, physical tests, there's nothing, just no standard that per year.
Yeah, we'll have to check base in like 5 years and
Yeah.
see
See
where
what
it's at.
happens.
Yeah. So I know in your bio, and we've talked about it a few times throughout the conversation, but you're really involved. You're involved with your county police chiefs association, with the legislative efforts. You're also on the board for an organization that focuses on wellness. And so, is there anything that you want to share that, maybe is a part of the conversation, or something that you guys are focusing on, or something that you're really proud of that you've been able to be a part of?
Yeah, I think, the one board I'm proud of is prevention is key. I've been a board member for about 8 years, and that, helps people with mental health, substance abuse, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or any type of addicting products. Where basically, we offer them services. It could counseling, it's jobs. It originally started in Morris County. They spread statewide. And our sheriff here, Sheriff Gannon, he's a true leader. He actually started Hope One, where it's actually like a ice cream truck on wheels, and it provides services to people of mental health, drugs, and alcohol. So basically, they don't have to go to you; we go to them. So
Mm.
he works with us with prevention is key, and you can't arrest your way out of problems. What we've seen with people with addictions. So stigma free. We're here to help people.
Yeah.
Of course, we're still arresting people, the ones we have to arrest. But even once you're in the jail, there's certain programs to help them once they come out. I think it just makes everybody's lives better. Makes the citizen safer, the person who had the issue. We don't want to be dealing with the same people over and over again.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm very proud of working with the state chiefs as legislative chairman. Basically, that position is we lobby and obviously legislate bills through Trenton, through the Senate and the Assembly to safeguard the citizens in New Jersey and safeguard law enforcement. to just, let us do our job, put the criminals behind more. And, we advocate for obviously victims also. And, even for if we see criminals are getting treated bad or we don't like something, a bill or legislation to give the criminals a second chance.
Yeah, I really appreciate the focus on rehabilitation.
Mhm.
I don't know if I shared with you that, so my parents were drug addicts, so I'm very familiar with the
Mhm.
cycle of this. My dad, he served a 6 year sentence and he got out and still went back to using, which was something that I couldn't comprehend as a young kid. I'm like, you were sober for 6 years. And he's pretty open book honest with me about a lot of stuff. And he like swears up and down that he wasn't using when he was in prison because he didn't want to lose his visitation rights. He wanted to see me. And so he got right back out, right back into the kind of the same group of people, and then probably another decade plus after that. And it wasn't until he was homeless on the streets with his dog, that he, finally was able to kind of have that wake up call and turn his life around. And then when I got into the wellness space, I worked extensively in rehab facilities, so detox and long term inpatient. And so I have a long history from the perspective of a child, with parents like that, but also through my work of working with um, rehab facilities, but also there was a nonprofit that we worked with where we had free yoga classes for anyone in addiction recovery. And we tried to use yoga as a way and community as a way to get people or keep people clean. And so I really appreciate the attention to rehabilitation and how can we try to set people on a better path. Like, what are those resources and things that we can do? Because at the end of the day, I think we all want to feel like we've helped someone improve their life. We don't want to see them making those same decisions over and over again, especially in the context of addiction. So that's kind of near and dear to my heart. So I really do appreciate that.
No, of course, yeah.
Mhm.
And again, I've 29 years. I think that's very challenging is when I had, kids die of overdoses and telling the parents that, hey, your son or daughter passed away. That's the toughest thing. And there's no police officer wants to do that.
Yeah.
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 It
And
makes us feel good where we actually see people in our community who we've arrested, who are down and out, who are literally homeless, and we brought them in. And now that we see them, that they're working, they're doing good. There's no other satisfaction that makes an officer more happier just to
yeah.
see that.
Yeah, I was doing an on-site in California, and um, I there was a detective who was talking to another guy. I didn't know who they were. I had like my point of contact, but they were like kind of having a conversation kind of nearby. And one of the guys was all like tatted up and street clothes. And the other guy, you could tell he worked for the PD, and the guy left and he came back in and he tells us, he's like, hey, that's a guy that I used to arrest all the time. And he just came back in to tell me that he's been sober for, I think it was several years. And he was coming back as a part of his program to thank me. And I was like, wow. Like I got chills. Like I'm a very like emotional person in the sense that I'm very like sentimental. Like even talking about it right now, like I have like watery eyes, because I was like, wow, like that's what it's all about, like everyone I meet in this profession, whether they're on the wellness side of things or the policing side of things, everybody wants to make a positive impact and to help people. And you don't always get that positive reinforcement. You don't always get people thanking you. You don't always, know what happens to everybody, but it's those moments that happen that I think that make everything worthwhile. And so to hear that guy say that, he's like, wow, like I helped that guy. I was like, that is
Yeah.
such a cool moment to remember.
And then I had that several months ago when I was working at the gym. Actually, a kid came up to me and he's like, "Oh, you remember me?" I'm like, "Oh, I remember you." And we talked about the time where I used to chase him, arrest him, the things he did, and we're laughing about it. But it's good to laugh about it because now he's doing great.
Yeah,
Look
I
back at
love it.
that. And so I understand what you're saying. It's great.
I love it. Well, my final question for you is for the younger generation. What words of wisdom would you share with them that maybe you wish you would have known when you were younger in this career, or something that's helped you along the way that you can pass on to them?
Definitely eat healthier. All right, and start reading those food labels, especially when you're working midnights. I think the younger generation coming in. Uh, Obviously different values. Is what we'll call the old school policing. I think they just listen to people and treat people how you want to be treated. You know, often at times I tell the younger recruits, I'm like, you know, your first contact sometimes with um, most citizens could maybe be like on a motor vehicle stop for because that's majority of time when you're having interaction, or if you're called to home on a call, whether it's you know, domestic, or they just have some people call it to have a bear in the backyard, a simple call like that. Is, you know, just treat people with respect, listen to them,
Mm.
and don't judge people. Whether you're dealing with the homeless guy in the street, or a CEO in your town, treat everybody the same, because there's karma in life, and it pays back twofold to come back to you.
Mm.
So I think that's it. Just, you know, and you know, and it's a job. It's, you know, it doesn't rule your life. It's like any other thing. It's a job. You know, when you go home, try to turn it off, and, you know, live your life. Don't let it control you. I see, you know, I think a lot of in this profession sometimes, you know, a lot of officers put up a wall. They feel like, you know, they can only trust certain people, or everybody's against them. But, you know, and surround yourself, I think, with a good support group, and good friends, and, you know, and it's still a great career. You know, 29 years talking to you, I wouldn't be here if I didn't enjoy the career. It's been great to myself and my family, and yeah,
Thank you.
yep,
I really appreciate your time, and
yep,
thank you for coming on here. I feel like we could have talked probably for another hour about a lot
yep.
of different stuff, but I really do appreciate you coming on here today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And next time I expect to be flown out to Arizona, I can play golf in the sun. I'm sitting here in the cold weather in New Jersey.
I know when you said golf, I was like, I'm sure you've heard that we have like the best golf in the world. So
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paige.